Joining us now on the Hurrdat Hotline is Jay Foreman. Jay, how are you this morning?
Good. I'm doing all right, man. How you guys doing?
Jay Bird, what's up, buddy, man? Long time no chat, but not really. How we doing, man?
Yeah, long time no chat on the on the radio waves, but everything's all good, man. I mean, it's spring is springing, and football is footballing. So we got the gusty winds in Nebraska, so everything is a-okay.
Be honest, full disclosure, are you happier when I'm not bugging you at practice so you can actually watch what you want to, or do you prefer we just stand and talk to one another?
I don't really watch practice. Hey, man. You just say, hey, listen, it's 9:05. I'm just gonna put you right on the hot spot.
Oh, I got to know how I need to proceed, man. Should I just leave you alone?
No, here's one thing I've learned and or came to realize. There's some former players I enjoy talking to, so practice is just like the background noise, and there's some that I try to avoid at all costs. And so that has been a hard. I would say this: it's been a hard lesson, but it's been a quick reminder that some things just never change. So no, I don't mind it. I don't really get watch practice. The one thing I will say about practice, and I've said this even the few times I popped my head in there last year, you know how it is, Damon. You walk through and it feels like football. So I mean, I think that's a huge step in the right direction. And so just on the quick snapshot, they definitely look like a better football team.
Hey, stay right there, because I say that, and I was like, it might have been you. I think it was you I was talking to when I said, when I say it feels like football, I'm not comparing like a 2021 practice to a 2022 practice, and like where the bench line there, the benchmark is what I didn't like. I'm just simply saying I like the fact it feels like football. Like, that's my frame of reference. Is that how you feel, or what does it feels like football mean to you?
It just feels like you're out there and everybody's playing football. And so nowhere is obviously it's never going to get to not since they never, but you can't expect. I think sometimes people's expectations are you go from say where we were say a couple years ago to like Ohio State. There's a step by step process because we had a step by step and huge leap process to get where we're at, and that's there's right, wrong, or indifferent how we get there or how we got here, and then you got to work your way up. And what I mean by football is everybody's practicing, everybody's you would like to think that everybody's getting a lot of work, and especially in the spring, it's so important that that's how you improve and have some depth. And I mean, you can go back to the first game last year against Minnesota. I think in the first two series, I think like 19 guys played.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so that means that they had in their this is where I think they have the confidence in that they can develop people, is that they've done it before, and they've done it here in my estimation, a very short amount of time. You get hired, you try to change the culture, you try to get people implemented into your system. You got winter conditioning, which obviously seemed totally different, and then you go into spring, which was totally different, and boom, we're here on the road. And I call the Thursday night game the Minnesota Open because that's they play every year Thursday night on the road, and guys seem to step up, and you had guys that normally under past regimes would be on the milk carton and probably be on the way out in the transfer portal, show up and play big minutes. And so now you're able to see guys be more accustomed to, how to show up to practice, the language, the expectations, and knowing right from wrong. And then hopefully that filters down, kind of like what we were blessed to have when we came in as young pups. Obviously, you came in a year before me, to where you could be shown, told, and then also coached how to do it, and then let you go do it, reel you back in when you kind of, get out of line. And then the more times that you can have your peers kind of coach you, encourage you, and all those things I mentioned before, that's how you're able to, pay it forward. And you're not always feeling like you have to rebuild. You kind of reload because who's coming down the pipe.
Jay, you mentioned the just the added benefit of kind of knowing how you practice. Like, how much does that matter? Because I don't know that that's something people who haven't played think about that much, of just being familiar and comfortable with knowing how things are going to operate. How much easier is it to focus on actually getting better when that's not something you just have to figure out the mechanics of?
It's completely different. I mean, I guess, when we played in college, we didn't have to deal with it, but I dealt with it. I feel like, it seems like too much in the NFL where there's constant turnover in coaches and regimes. I feel like, especially with our team where you didn't anybody that was surefire established players. You had guys that were good players, but you needed more out of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And still probably need some more out of some of those guys. The first year, I equate you're like in survival mode. You're kind of just tiptoeing around. Do I really want to answer the challenge? Do I want to, listen to another voice? Then do I want to listen to the people that are telling me that, dog, you're too good. You can go somewhere else and get yours. Or do I want to stay and be committed to something that's new, that there's no guarantee that there's going to be success, and believe in it? And then once you kind of, get through that 2-3 week of threshold, say, you know what? I'm gonna be in this, and then you start to see guys, their attitudes change. That's the first year, right? Trying to figure out where trying to get in where you fit in. Am I a starter? Am I a rotational player? I'm not starting, but will I get some reps, right? Well, I'm playing well in practice. I'm going in sometimes with the ones, and I'm playing mostly in the twos in practice. But then, am I going to get in the game? Am I going to be on the travel roster right off the rip, right? So there's some change there because you go from the home roster to the travel roster, or to the second, to this year. You kind of know what's expected from the work. You kind of know what's expected from like the recruiting standpoint, and what potentially could be, your challenges as far as guys coming in. The weight room, Corey Campbell and all those guys, the expectations there. Then also you have a whole season worth of practices, off the field stuff, obviously game film, where you can get better, and then it's up to you to separate yourself, in a competition. So the second year should be, I wouldn't say easier, but less anxiety of showing up every day at practice, because those first, correct me if I'm wrong, Damon. I mean, I remember being in the league, they're like with Greg Williams, dude, them first 3 or 4 mini camps were like, you didn't know what you were doing. You didn't know if you were going live goals.
Yeah, 100%.
You didn't know if you were going to be the Junction Boys, or you were going to no pass, or they were just going to take it. Like one time I was telling somebody, like Greg Williams just spent the whole practice and telling us how crappy we were on defense. And we're like, we were just number 3,
Mm-hmm.
And so that's, and not saying that Matt Rhule and those guys did it, but you're just dealing with a different type of mental aspect of it. And then once you kind of get into the system, and understanding what the expected, you got to think for the last half, especially because I wasn't down there, especially that last year. But you got to think Matt Rhule coming in put a big emphasis on nutrition, holding you accountable. You got meals there, you got to eat. If you don't eat, you're a bad teammate. I'm holding you accountable. I'm not going to tell you, I'm going to do it. Then big emphasis on recovery. If you're not doing it, you're a bad team. These are the things that, like, if you weren't accustomed to it or doing it on your own, and let's be honest, Damon, if you were in this, it would be adjustment for us, because, we probably have more mental strength as, like, we say, hey, you know what, let's go kick it on a Thursday because we know we can answer the bell on a Friday, right? But if you're held accountable that, we got to hit a meal, we can't, say like in your case, say you don't, you can't go, get on the road too early to go to Omaha because you got team obligations. There's things that guys have to adjust to. In the second year, it's just a part of way of life. And then once you start to see the positive reinforcement and outcomes from it, then it just becomes something that you want to tell other people about, hopefully.
Let me ask you something, because you're very good at the relationship portion and emotional security, especially when it comes to when you can transition into thriving in any environment. I get the sense on the recruiting trail, a lot of this was firsthand. They care, and you're important, but at the end of the day, there's this security that they could take or leave you because they know what's best, and you should too. Just like at practice.
Yeah.
Just like at practice,
yeah.
where we can compete, and it's going to be physical, and we can go one-on-ones, and we may have to, move you out of the way or step over you if you're a little slow getting up. Practice will continue.
Right.
But I care about you, and you're important to me. Like, there are just these little, I can cuss you out, but you're still important to me. Like, all those things seem to have something in common, right? What is it?
Well, first of all, because it's not personal. and that's where you can really, and that's why I think as of right now you don't see a lot of guys jumping in the portal because I just was talking about this the other. As much as kids have changed, and I'll just deal with athletes, the regular kids outside. I'm dealing with athletes because I think it's a different dynamic when you're dealing with athletes, high level athletes, high functioning athletes, or whatever you want to call them. As long as you keep it real and it's not personal, they will be okay with it and they will thrive in it. That will not change. But once it becomes personal and you're lying to them and they can, it's like spider senses. When their BS meter starts to kind of go off like, fire alarms or whatever, then you lose all kind of credibility. And so I think that's it. And then you talk about the recruiting aspect of it, for this program, and then coming from the NFL, very confident in what they can do or what they envision themselves doing. They're very secure in themselves, and that's something that that when you talk to people, it's just who they are. So if they're very secure in what they're doing, obviously you're secure, obviously by contract and all that. But if you're secure in your business, then that's how you're going to recruit. And they know that right now it's a great time because of the plethora of athletes out there. They can giving everybody equal chances, as we can only go right now to prove themselves, make a name for themselves, create a legacy, and come in and play. But you got to earn it. You have to earn it. You can't roll in there anymore and say, you know what, man, it'd be just like, I'm just thinking about this. Just say like if I, my first year where I was starting and, splitting time with Jamel and then going there the next year sitting with Coach McBride, be like, man, if I don't go from playing 60% of the time, 80% of the time, I'm in the portal. That's not going to work. That's not going to work anymore. It might have worked in the past. It's not going to work anymore. They feel that they can build a roster and develop a roster. So if that starts to kind of get into the system of their program, they can jettison out of it and keep it moving. And that's just probably the biggest difference. Now, times have changed because of, being able to take advantage of some of the guys and I do feel like this. And I've said this plenty of times. I think the change when Mickey took over and breathed some new energy and life into them and some more structure and accountability made this transition into Matt Rhule and staff a lot easier.
2,000%.
And just give them credit, and it is what it is. But I think that there was a good foundation set where there wasn't a bad locker room. Guys they didn't know what they didn't know. They're open to realistic, clear, honest, hard work, accountability. And so this is what you're seeing right now. So it's great right now. And so these guys are – the tricky part about spring is, which, you'd like to see is like tough guys and physically tough guys. And then who can deal with the success of spring. Because spring is right now, when we played, Damon, it was you better be ready to play, right? Mm-hmm. It's a game. Now I think this is a celebration of spring ball. Here's what we got, kind of dog and pony show. Transition quick to game mode. UTEP has to be on your mind as soon as that clock strikes 0 because you have to start quick. You have to get better, and there's no time to sit on your likes or whatever it is that kind of get these guys to lose a little bit of focus and not be hyper-focused on winning the game and being the best player that you can be, because even if you had a good spring, the competition is too thick. You've seen it, in person. In every position, most likely, competition is too thick. And it's not necessarily who's going to start, say, Ty Robinson and Nash, right? They're most likely going to start. But if you don't think a guy like Riley Van Poppel and Jackson and those guys aren't like, them on the shoulder.
Oh yeah. I think that. I think that, Jay.
Right. Well, I mean, we know it, but I'm just saying, sit back and chill. All I'm saying is this: if you sit back and chill, and then think like, yeah, I'm gonna take a couple weeks off. I'm not gonna really go. I'm gonna ease back into off-season training. Then that gap starts to lessen, and then when pressure starts to get there, then you like, okay, now I got to start doing what I'm normally doing. And then I always say you reap the sins of your past, and that's not working, continue to work and get to the point that where you want to be the best player you can be and separate yourself. Spring is unique because me and you are competing for a position. I want you to do well, but I want to do better. Why? Because I worked for it.
Yep.
I feel like when we get down and dirty, I got more in the tank. It's the staying power, and separating yourself. And you have to have that. Remember, we talked about that ego. Like, this is my position. It's for the betterment of the team, and I'm going to continue to show you. Not just one game, not just one practice, not just 1 week. I'm going to show you. So there's no question. I used to always think I would not want anybody to get in their car or like after a game and be like, man, so it's just as good as them. They're like, no shit. I didn't want that. It's what we had to build, because we had to work our way up through it, right? We had to sit there and, have long lunches at the training table, wonder whether whether I want to go to Minneapolis, you want to go back to Omaha, and not come back. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, and those were real. Being on punt return, oh man, we're sitting up there, thinking about, man, wanted to drop kick Coach Bowl sometimes, but we had to do what we had to do.
We're talking with Jay Foreman, former Husker. Jay, so you kind of mentioned the mindset of guys going from, hey, I got a little playing time last year. I can't expect to get more playing time this year just because I'm a year older, right? Is that a mindset that you think Coach Rhule recruits to guys that are wired that way? Or do you think they try and rewire the way guys think once they get here if they think they're the right fit?
Yeah, I mean, everybody has to, get, rewired. I think we got humbled. We call it, we got humbled. I think now you have to de-star them, right? And so say like you're a player that, say you're, there's a difference. And I had to learn this in the NFL and where you go from, being a backup and guy that say you go, at the end of the season, you go on that 6-game run. You're like, yeah, this is easy. You know what I'm saying? I mean, hey, I should be in the Pro Bowl. Well, guess what? They got tape on you now. Now they're game planning specifically for you. They're trying to see how smart you are, not for 6 games, but for 16 games. And so you do have to rewire them. You have to constantly challenge them, because you have to put them in a place mentally that physically that they can operate and not at the highest level in the highest pressure situation. And you got to be 100% honest with them. You got to tell somebody, like in my case, hey, dude, what you did is good. But let me tell you something. This player at this team did it. This is what he struggled with in the second year. You better get your mind right. Matter of fact, I'm going to be harder on you because I want the best for you, so you don't stub your toe and have that quote unquote sophomore jinx. And there was a couple guys that had to deal with that, right? Where you played some as a true freshman. Oh man, that's great. Guess what? Now you got a new defensive coordinator, and they got tape on you. And so you just got to get to the point that where and I don't want to say it's rewiring. I think it's always kind of like, do it. It's like you're adding to the wire. You're adding to the mental. You're taking it up. You're just kind of constantly tweaking it. I would say tweaking versus rewiring. Rewiring, I think, is like you got somebody that thinks they, had, we've seen it, right? We're a couple running backs or running back. I won't say the game because then I would be diming them out. Played a night game, a couple guys, had some big games. Next thing you know, they act like they ain't got to practice.
You know what's funny?
That's rewiring.
I said this a couple weeks ago, and I think what you're talking about is a perfect example. We were talking about the transfer portal and how it may or may not be busy. And I said, hey, look, some of these guys are going to take a look around and think there's not enough space between us and we're close to the same age. So I may just bounce, because if I'm a guy that played last year, and let's say, let's use your number, 60%, not only is there tape on me and the standard has been set for me, I have to be equal to or greater than my development from the previous year than the guy coming in or the younger guy that's evolving as well, right? So if I'm a guy that Doss is a good example because he played early, right? Or Lloyd or Malachi Coleman. See, they'll have to improve that much more because of guys like Bell or Barney or any of these other guys that are improving exponentially given to where they came in too, right? Like, it never stops. Next year, you'll have 2 years of tape. You better be that much better than the guy below you that is getting that much better, because they're going to want to see reps, right? Like, that's what happens. That's what happens when you build depth.
you build depth, but I also will say this: as long as you're continuing to improve and not, not getting worse or resting on your laurels, you will be secure in your spot. Because here's why.
Yep.
Here's what coaches like, and you know this. You're a coach. You like to know that when them 11 dudes run out there in defense or this particular player or position, you know what you're going to get.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you find, and here's a example for me. I had, I started as a freshman at outside linebacker, was a co-starter at middle linebacker, really probably, and I was the backup, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was making plays, and I used to try to, my sophomore year. In my junior year, I felt like I had a good year, maybe kind of going to the pros. I sat down with Coach McBride, and he said, and he's like you could think like, okay, there's a possibility I was gonna, I was like, all right, I've been here 4 years, 3-year starter, 2 to 3 national championships, felt like I could run a 40 and do all that. Then you can go, why not just, tap out and go to the pros? He said, you know what? I want to see you be more physical at the point of attack, and be more commanding in the passing game and eliminate the middle of the field.
Mm.
And that came from somewhere else, right? So if that's not something,
yeah, he probably heard that on a humbug, maybe,
right?
Feeling things out
Something
for you.
Like yeah, right. But let me tell you something. Like that conversation. Get in the car, you go home, but then you realize, you know what? All right, I'm going to show you. And, then you had, like, I think, Ben by Carlos Polk coming up the pipe or whatever. Then so that spring was a completely different challenge. And then what did I try to improve? So every day that I got there to practice session, you know what I mean? That's what I'm thinking about. And then then it became a habit. So the improvement ideally showed wasn't like a height, weight, speed thing or a playmaking thing, because I could make plays, right? You're going to make the plays. You know what I mean? You're going to make the plays, and then you got to make a play that normally you wouldn't make, but it was getting that much better that gave him security, and then you didn't have to rush somebody in there. And so the coaches also have to make sure you don't get too excited by the new toy, because longevity and being able to answer the bell and been through some wars, there's something that be said there. Situation, I'm always for players. If you're playing 60% of the time, and say you graded out, just say you graded out at like a 74% on a PFF or whatever. Well, I could take that same 60% and get it to 84, and I'm going to bigger places than even if I played even if I played 70% of the snap and kept the same grade. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
My efficiency can go off the roof. Having to sit there and say, you know what, I need to be it's like being an efficient scorer versus a volume scorer. What do you want to be? You want to shoot 30 shots to get 30 points, or do you want to shoot 16 shots and get 32 points?
That's our guy, Jay Foreman, former Husker. Jay, great stuff. We appreciate it. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Jay.
All right, man.